The white rose petals scattered across the manicured lawn seemed to tremble as the distant sound of helicopter blades cut through the string quartet's melody. 300 guests in their finest attire turned from the flower-adorned altar toward the sound, shielding their eyes against the afternoon sun. Victor Reed, heir to one of the country's largest pharmaceutical empires, stood frozen at the altar. The color drained from his face as he recognized the sleek black helicopter descending on his family estate's helipad. "What is it? Who's that?" His bride, Sophia, clutched his arm, her diamond bracelet digging into his skin. But Victor couldn't answer. The breath had left his body as the helicopter door opened and a woman in a tailored white suit stepped out, her caramel hair dancing in the wind from the slowing rotors. Then, two small figures emerged behind her. Twins, a boy and a girl no older than 6, each holding one of her hands as they walked with practiced confidence toward the wedding ceremony. Victor's mother gasped audibly. Anyone could see it. The children had Victor's eyes. 6 years earlier, Victor and Eliza Reed were the definition of a power couple. He was the brilliant heir to Reed Pharmaceuticals. She, a biochemist whose research had already saved countless lives. Their wedding had been the social event of the season, with their vows exchanged in the same garden where Victor now stood with another woman. Their marriage seemed perfect, passionate, supportive, and built on mutual respect. They traveled the world together, donated millions to charity, and were preparing to start a family. Behind the scenes, though, storm clouds were gathering. Victor's childhood friend, Julian, had joined Reed Pharmaceuticals as CFO, bringing his sister Sophia into their social circle. What no one knew was how these two siblings would systematically destroy everything Victor and Eliza had built. Before we continue the story, let us know where you're watching from. The Reed estate glittered under the evening lights as waitstaff in crisp uniforms circulated through the annual charity gala. Victor watched his wife across the crowded ballroom, admiring how Eliza commanded attention in her emerald gown as she discussed her latest research with a health minister. 6 years of marriage had only deepened his attraction to her brilliant mind and kind heart. "She's quite something," Julian said, appearing beside Victor with 2 whiskeys. "You're a lucky man." Victor accepted the drink with a smile. "Don't I know it? The clinical trials on her cancer treatment protocol are showing incredible results." The board's thrilled. Julian nodded, his eyes following Eliza as she laughed at something Sophia said. "Must be nice, having beauty and brains under one roof." "We're trying for a baby, you know," Victor confided, the whiskey loosening his usual reserve. "Eliza's been tracking everything, says the timing is perfect this month." Julian's smile tightened, almost imperceptibly. "Fatherhood, huh? That'll change everything." Later that night, Eliza stepped out of their en-suite bathroom to find Victor sitting on the edge of their bed, her phone in his hand. His face was unrecognizable, contorted with rage and betrayal. "Victor, what are you doing with my phone?" "Who is Michael?" His voice was dangerously quiet. Eliza's brow furrowed in confusion. "Michael? I don't know any." "Don't lie to me." He thrust the phone at her, displaying text messages she'd never seen before. Intimate messages. Explicit plans for meetings. 3 months you've been seeing him? In our bed, Eliza? While I was traveling for work? "Victor, I've never seen these messages before. I don't know any Michael." Her hands trembled as she scrolled through conversations that appeared to be from her number, but contained words she'd never written. Your perfume was on his clothes. He knew things about our house only someone who'd been here would know. Victor stood, running his hands through his dark hair. Julian found him. The private investigator confirmed everything. Julian. Eliza's mind raced. "Victor, these are fake. Someone planted these messages. I would never." The bedroom door opened, and Julian entered without knocking. Security found these in her car. He handed Victor a small bag containing a man's watch and a hotel key card. "I've never seen those before." Eliza cried, reaching for Victor, who jerked away as if her touch would burn him. "Get out," Victor whispered. Then louder, "Get out of my house." "Victor, please. I'm your wife. I love you." Tears streamed down her face as Julian signaled to the security guards waiting in the hallway. "Not anymore. I want divorce papers drafted tonight." "Already taken care of," Julian replied, not meeting Eliza's desperate gaze. The next moments passed in a horrific blur as security escorted Eliza from the bedroom. She begged Victor to listen, to think logically. Why would she cheat when they were trying for a baby? But rational thought had abandoned him, replaced by a primal rage fueled by what appeared to be irrefutable evidence. Within 30 minutes, Eliza found herself standing on the driveway in her nightgown, watching as staff threw hastily packed suitcases into the trunk of her car. Victor watched from the balcony, his face a stone mask, while Julian stood beside him, a hand on his shoulder in apparent consolation. "Your access cards have been deactivated," the head of security informed her coldly. "Your accounts will be frozen by morning. Mr. Reed suggests you don't try to contact him or anyone at the company." Rain began to fall as Eliza sat in her car, gasping for breath between sobs. Her phone buzzed with a notification. Access to her email revoked. Then another. Her building access terminated. Then a third. A preliminary notice of divorce proceedings. 5 miles from the estate, she pulled into a 24-hour pharmacy parking lot and sat trembling under the fluorescent lights. This couldn't be happening. There had to be some explanation. Someone had set her up. But who and why? Her mind immediately went to Julian's strange behavior over the past months, the way he seemed to appear whenever she and Victor disagreed, the subtle suggestions that she might be working too much or traveling too often. Then a wave of nausea hit her, a familiar sensation from the past few mornings that she'd attributed to stress. With shaking hands, she left the pharmacy and purchased a pregnancy test. 3 minutes later, staring at the positive result in the pharmacy's sterile bathroom, Eliza Reed's world completely collapsed. She was pregnant with Victor's child, homeless, and facing a vicious divorce orchestrated by someone she now suspected had been plotting this for months. As dawn broke, she parked near Victor's office building, determined to make him listen. But security intercepted her before she reached the door. "Mr. Reed doesn't want to see you, Mrs. Reed," the guard said, uncomfortable but firm. "Tell him I'm pregnant," she pleaded. "Please, just tell him that." The guard disappeared inside. 10 excruciating minutes later, he returned. "Mr. Reed says that, given your infidelity, he has no reason to believe the child is his. His lawyer will contact you about a paternity test after the birth." Eliza's knees buckled at the cruelty of it. Through the glass doors, she could see Julian watching from the lobby, his expression unreadable. That afternoon, she discovered her credit cards had been canceled. By evening, her closest friends had stopped returning her calls, all part of the same social circle as Victor. By nightfall, she was sleeping in her car in a Walmart parking lot, 7 weeks pregnant and completely alone. She didn't know it yet, but the ultrasound she would have 2 weeks later would reveal an even greater shock: twins. The first glimmer of hope came in the form of Eleanor Simmons, an elderly woman who found Eliza vomiting beside her car early one morning. "You're either pregnant or dying, dear," Eleanor observed with startling directness. "Either way, you need help." Eleanor, a widow who had lost her only daughter to cancer years before, offered Eliza her daughter's old room until she could sort things out. It was in Eleanor's modest home that Eliza finally found space to think clearly about what had happened and to plan her response. She pawned her wedding ring for $112,000, a fraction of its value, but enough for prenatal care and a used laptop. Then she began meticulously documenting everything that had occurred, creating timelines, saving what evidence she could salvage. The picture that emerged confirmed her suspicions. Julian, with Sophia's help, had orchestrated her downfall. But why? What could they possibly gain? The answer came from an unexpected source. While browsing job listings at a coffee shop, Eliza overheard two pharmaceutical researchers discussing irregularities in Reed Pharmaceuticals' recent drug trial reports. "The numbers don't add up," one whispered. "The side effect profiles were clearly altered before submission." "Julian Thomas signed off on everything," the other replied. "Victor Reed probably never even saw the original data." Eliza's scientific mind clicked into high gear. She had been working on those very trials before her expulsion. If Julian was falsifying data, that wasn't just fraud, it was dangerous. People could die. And if she had stayed, she might have discovered it. That night, cradling her growing belly, Eliza made a decision. Victor had failed her completely, choosing blind rage over trust. But she would not allow Julian's schemes to harm innocent people or to rob her children of their future. "Your daddy didn't want us," she whispered to her unborn twins. "But that's okay. We're going to build something so spectacular that one day he'll realize exactly what he threw away." Morning sickness was a cruel misnomer, Eliza discovered as she vomited for the third time that afternoon. At 4 months pregnant with twins, her body was changing rapidly, making it nearly impossible to conceal her condition during job interviews. "I'm sorry, Dr. Reed," the lab director said, not meeting her eyes. "Your qualifications are impressive, but we've actually just filled the position." It was the same response she'd received at 5 other research facilities. Someone, almost certainly Julian, had blacklisted her throughout the industry. Eleanor found her crying on the porch swing that evening. "Chin up, dear," the older woman said, lowering herself beside Eliza. "The world doesn't end because one man was too foolish to see your worth." "It's not just Victor," Eliza explained. "No one will hire me. My research experience means nothing when Julian Thomas tells them I'm unstable or dishonest." Eleanor considered this. "Then perhaps you need to meet people who've never heard of Julian Thomas." The next day, Eleanor drove Eliza to a small community clinic serving primarily low-income patients. The waiting room was packed, the staff overwhelmed. "My friend Dr. Rebecca Torres runs this place," Eleanor explained. "She doesn't care about pharmaceutical politics, only about helping people." Dr. Torres was a hurricane in human form, a brilliant researcher who had left a prestigious position to serve those without access to adequate health care. After a 5-minute conversation about Eliza's research background, she offered her a part-time position analyzing patient data. "I can't pay you what you're worth," Dr. Torres warned. "And I see you're expecting twins?" Eliza nodded, surprised. "The way you're carrying, classic twin TN presentation," Dr. Torres explained. "Look, this isn't glamorous work, but it's honest. And no one here will judge you for being pregnant and unmarried, if that's what you're worried about." For the first time in months, Eliza felt a flicker of hope. "When can I start?" The work was indeed unglamorous, organizing patient records, analyzing treatment outcomes, and helping streamline the clinic's protocols. But it kept Eliza's mind sharp and provided just enough income to supplement what she'd gotten from her wedding ring. At 7 months pregnant, she waddled into Dr. Torres's office with findings she couldn't ignore. "There's a pattern in these cancer patients," Eliza explained, spreading charts across the desk. "Those taking Reed Pharmaceuticals' new medication are showing liver complications at 3 times the reported rate." Dr. Torres studied the data. "This is concerning." "You're certain?" "The sample size is small, but the pattern is unmistakable," Eliza confirmed. "And it matches what I overheard about falsified trial data." Dr. Torres's expression darkened. "We should report this to the FDA." "With what proof?" Eliza sighed. "They'll say our data set is too limited. We need more evidence." "What we need," Dr. Torres said thoughtfully, "is to develop an alternative treatment, something safer." Eliza blinked. "That would take years and millions in funding." "Not necessarily," Dr. Torres smiled mysteriously. "I have a fully equipped lab at my home. It's where I conduct my own research after hours. Perhaps it's time you saw it." Dr. Torres's home lab turned out to be a state-of-the-art facility, built in what had once been a large barn on her property. "My late husband left me quite comfortable," Dr. Torres explained. "I use my inheritance to fund research the big companies won't touch, treatments for rare diseases, affordable alternatives to expensive medications." Eliza ran her hand over the gleaming equipment. "This is incredible." "It's also private," Dr. Torres emphasized. "No corporate oversight. No shareholders demanding quarterly profits at the expense of safety. Just pure science." She fixed Eliza with an intense gaze. "Your previous work on cancer treatment protocols was groundbreaking. What would you do if you had the freedom to continue that research your way?" The question awakened something in Eliza that had been dormant since her expulsion. The passionate researcher who had once believed she could change the world. 2 weeks later, Leo and Luna Reed entered the world in Dr. Torres's clinic, healthy, perfect, and blissfully unaware of the chaos surrounding their birth. No birth announcement appeared in the papers. No proud father paced the waiting room. Just Eleanor, dabbing tears of joy as she held the newborns, and Dr. Torres, who had delivered them herself. "They have his eyes," Eleanor observed carefully. "Yes," Eliza agreed, studying her son's serious expression and her daughter's curious gaze. "But hopefully my common sense." Recovery from the birth was complicated by emotional exhaustion, but Eliza allowed herself only 2 weeks before returning to Dr. Torres's lab, often with the twins sleeping nearby in a portable crib. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, as Eliza refined her research, focusing on developing a cancer treatment with significantly fewer side effects than Reed Pharmaceuticals' flagship drug. When the twins were 8 months old, the breakthrough came. Eliza had created a compound that showed remarkable efficacy against aggressive cancers while maintaining a benign side effect profile. Dr. Torres was ecstatic. "This is extraordinary," she declared, reviewing the lab results. "You need to patent this immediately." "Patents require money," Eliza reminded her, "and lawyers." "Which I have," Dr. Torres countered. "But more importantly, this discovery deserves to reach patients. It needs a company behind it." Eliza laughed bitterly. What company would work with Victor Reed's discarded wife? Dr. Torres gave her a long, measured look. "A new one. One you create yourself." The idea seemed preposterous at first. Eliza had no business experience, no industry contacts, and barely enough money to cover diapers for the twins. But Dr. Torres was persistent, eventually revealing that she had been quietly investing in biotech startups for years. "I'm prepared to provide seed funding," she told Eliza. "My only conditions are that you maintain complete control and that the medications we develop remain affordable." "Why would you do this for me?" Eliza asked, suspicious of such generosity after months of betrayal. "Because 20 years ago, I was you," Dr. Torres answered simply. "Brilliant, betrayed, and underestimated. The man who did it to me went on to become a pharmaceutical giant, selling medications at 20 times their production cost. I've spent 2 decades looking for someone who could help me change that system." She smiled at the twins playing on a blanket nearby. "Consider it my investment in the next generation." Phoenix Pharmaceuticals was born in Dr. Torres's barn laboratory, with Eliza using her maiden name, Eliza Winters, to avoid immediate association with Reed Pharmaceuticals. Their first patent application went through without a hitch. Julian and Victor remained completely unaware that their former colleague was building a rival company. By the time the twins turned 2, Phoenix had secured FDA approval for their first medication and had begun small-scale production. Dr. Torres's industry contacts proved invaluable, opening doors that would have remained firmly closed to Eliza alone. Their first major contract came from Mercy Hospital Network, which had been struggling with the high cost and concerning side effects of Reed Pharmaceuticals' cancer treatments. Phoenix offered an effective alternative at half the price, with significantly better patient outcomes. The announcement made a small ripple in industry publications. Newcomer Phoenix Pharmaceuticals, led by scientist Eliza Winters, secures multi-million-dollar contract with Mercy Hospital Network, challenging established players in the oncology medication market. At Reed Pharmaceuticals, the news received little attention. A new competitor was hardly unusual in their industry, and the company name raised no red flags. Only when their largest hospital client announced they were switching suppliers did alarms begin to sound. Julian Thomas stormed into Victor's office, tossing a report onto his desk. "We just lost Metropolitan Medical to some startup called Phoenix. That's $30 million in annual revenue gone." Victor, now more involved in the social aspects of business than the scientific work that had once passionate him, barely looked up. "So offer them a better deal." "I did," Julian snapped. "They refused. Said Phoenix's medication has superior outcomes and fewer side effects. Their exact words were, 'Reed's product doesn't compare.'" This finally captured Victor's attention. "That's impossible. Our R&D team has been working on that formulation for years." "Well, apparently this Eliza Winters person solved in 2 years what our team couldn't manage in 5. Julian's tone was carefully calibrated to suggest incompetence, rather than his own sabotage of Reed's research department after Eliza's departure. Eliza Winters. Victor frowned, the name stirring something in his memory. "No one knows much about her," Julian continued smoothly. "She emerged from nowhere about 3 years ago. Very private. Never gives interviews. But her science is apparently exceptional." "I want to meet her," Victor decided. "Set up a dinner. Perhaps we should consider acquiring Phoenix rather than competing with it." Julian's expression tightened, almost imperceptibly. "I'll try, but my sources say she refuses most meeting requests, especially from larger pharmaceuticals." "Everyone has their price," Victor replied dismissively, returning to the social calendar on his desk, where Sophia had marked several charity galas. They would attend together. Meanwhile, across the city, Eliza sat in Phoenix's modest but growing headquarters, reviewing their latest financial projections, while the twins colored quietly in her office's small play area. Reed Pharmaceuticals lost another contract today, her assistant mentioned, placing fresh reports on her desk. Their stock dropped 8%. Eliza allowed herself a small smile. "How unfortunate for them." "There's also this," the assistant added, sliding over a business magazine. On the cover was Victor, with Sophia on his arm at a fair IT event. The headline read, "Reed heir to Wednesday Sophia Thomas in spring ceremony." Eliza's expression remained neutral as she studied the image of the man who had thrown her out in the night, the man whose children were now quietly drawing pictures just feet away. Children he had never bothered to confirm were his, despite his initial demand for paternity testing. "Mom, look." Luna held up a drawing of what appeared to be their small family, Eliza, Leo, Luna, Eleanor, and Dr. Torres, all holding hands. "It's us." "That's beautiful, sweetheart," Eliza replied, her voice steady despite the emotions swirling within her. Later that night, after tucking the twins into bed, Eliza sat on her balcony, overlooking the city. In the distance, she could see the Reed Pharmaceuticals tower, illuminated against the night sky. 3 years of strategic work had built Phoenix into a formidable competitor, one that was beginning to seriously impact Reed's bottom line. But that had never been her primary goal. Her phone chimed with a message from her investigator, a former patient whose life had been saved by Phoenix's medication and who now used his skills as a financial analyst to track Reed Pharmaceuticals' activities. Found something significant in their quarterly filings. Hidden inconsistencies suggest at least $50 million unaccounted for. Need to dig deeper. Also, wedding date confirmed. May 15th. May 15th. The exact date 6 years earlier when security had escorted her from her home. Eliza closed her eyes. The timing couldn't be coincidental. Julian and Sophia had a flair for psychological cruelty. Choosing that specific date was clearly meant as a final erasure of her existence in Victor's life. But they had miscalculated badly. Because while they had been planning a wedding, Eliza had been building an empire. And more importantly, she had been gathering evidence of financial fraud, of deliberately concealed drug side effects, and of the elaborate scheme to frame her for infidelity. The twins deserved to know their father, Dr. Torres had told her repeatedly. And Victor deserves to know what Julian did. Eliza had resisted for years, protecting the peaceful world she'd created for her children. But seeing the wedding announcement, planned for the anniversary of her greatest humiliation, crystallized something within her. It was time for the truth to emerge. All of it. The Reed estate had never looked more magnificent. Thousands of white roses adorned the garden, where 300 guests had gathered to witness the union of Victor Reed and Sophia Thomas. String musicians played softly as the guests were seated, their murmured conversations creating a gentle hum of anticipation. Victor stood at the altar, handsome in his tailored tuxedo, though close observers might note the slight hollow in his eyes. In the front row, his parents exchanged concerned glances. They had never fully warmed to Sophia, though they'd kept their reservations private. Julian Thomas, serving as best man, surveyed the scene with poorly concealed satisfaction. Everything had gone according to plan. Within months of Eliza's removal, he had introduced his sister to Victor. Her calculated affection had been the perfect distraction from Victor's occasional questions about the evidence against Eliza. Meanwhile, Julian had systematically redirected company funds, established offshore accounts, and positioned himself to eventually take control of Reed Pharmaceuticals entirely. The wedding officiant took his position. The music shifted to the bridal march. Sophia appeared at the end of the aisle in a designer gown that had cost more than most homes. And then the distant sound of helicopter blades. At first, guests assumed it was part of the celebration, perhaps an elaborate entrance or surprise planned by the groom. But Victor's expression of confusion quickly shifted to alarm as the black helicopter descended toward the estate's helipad. "What's happening?" Sophia demanded, reaching the altar as the guests began to turn toward the noise. Victor didn't answer. Something about the helicopter seemed oddly familiar. The ceremony paused as the helicopter landed. Security personnel moved uncertainly toward the helipad, unsure whether to intervene. No one had authorized them to stop the aircraft. Then the door opened, and she stepped out. Even from a distance, Victor recognized her immediately. The world seemed to narrow to a single point as Eliza, his ex-wife, the woman he had cast aside 6 years earlier, walked calmly toward the ceremony in an elegant navy suit that emphasized how little she had changed. Her hair was different, her posture more confident, but her face stirred something deep within him that he had tried desperately to forget. Then, 2 small figures emerged from the helicopter behind her, a boy and a girl, holding her hands, looking around with curious expressions that mirrored Victor's own when confronted with something new. "Oh my God," Victor's mother whispered, rising from her seat. "Richard, look at them." Victor's father stood as well, his face pale with shock. "They have his eyes," Victor's mother said. The murmurs spread through the crowd as Eliza and the children walked deliberately toward the ceremony. Security looked to Victor for direction, but he remained frozen, unable to process what he was seeing. "What is this?" Sophia hissed, grabbing Victor's arm. "Who is that woman? Why is she here with those children?" Julian stepped forward, his face contorted with rage and fear. "I'll handle this." He signaled to security, but Eliza's calm voice cut through the chaos. "I wouldn't, Julian. Not unless you want your financial activities made public, right now, instead of in tomorrow's papers." Julian faltered as Eliza and the children reached the edge of the seating area. The twins, impeccably dressed and remarkably composed for their age, stayed close to their mother, studying the scene with intelligent eyes. "Victor," Eliza said, her voice carrying across the now silent gathering, "meet your children, Leo and Luna." The ones you never knew existed when you threw me out 6 years ago." The collective gasp from the guests was audible. Victor's mother pressed a hand to her mouth, tears filling her eyes as she looked at her grandchildren for the first time. "That's impossible," Sophia snapped. "She's lying. Victor, tell everyone she's lying." But Victor couldn't speak. He was staring at the children, at the boy whose serious expression and thoughtful eyes were eerily familiar, at the girl whose determined stance mirrored his own in childhood photographs. DNA tests confirming their paternity have already been filed with the family court, Eliza continued calmly, along with evidence of how Julian and Sophia conspired to remove me from your life by fabricating evidence of infidelity. Julian lunged forward. "Security, remove this woman immediately." "I wouldn't," came another voice, as Dr. Rebecca Torres emerged from behind Eliza. "Not unless Reed Pharmaceuticals wants the FDA to receive our complete file on the falsified side effect profiles of Rhinol tonight instead of next week." The crowd erupted in confused conversations. Victor's parents pushed past the security guards to approach the children, his mother kneeling, despite her expensive dress, to look the twins in the eyes. "Hello," she said softly. I would be your grandmother." Luna, ever the bolder of the twins, studied the older woman carefully before replying, "You look like the pictures Mom keeps in our memory box." This simple statement, revealing that Eliza had ensured the children knew their paternal family, despite everything, seemed to break something in Victor's mother. She began to cry openly, reaching out a tentative hand that Luna accepted with surprising grace. Victor finally found his voice. "Eliza, how?" "I was 7 weeks pregnant when you threw me out," she replied, keeping her tone measured despite the emotions churning beneath the surface. "I try to tell you. Your security guards delivered the message. You said you wanted a paternity test after the birth, but no one ever contacted me." Victor turned to Julian, confusion and dawning horror on his face. "What are you talking about? I never received any message about a pregnancy." Julian's expression hardened. "She's lying. This is obviously some elaborate scheme to..." "To what, Julian?" Eliza interrupted. "To disrupt the wedding you specifically scheduled for the anniversary of my expulsion? To reveal that you and Sophia have embezzled over $80 million from Reed Pharmaceuticals? Or perhaps to inform Victor that I'm the Eliza Winters he's been trying to meet, the founder of Phoenix Pharmaceuticals, that's been steadily taking his market share for the past 3 years." The revelations landed like physical blows. Victor staggered back, looking from Julian to Sophia, then back to Eliza and the children, his children, standing calmly amid the chaos they had initiated. "This is absurd," Sophia declared, though her voice trembled slightly. "Victor, she's clearly disturbed. We need to have her removed." "Actually," came a new voice from the back of the gathering, "I think we'll be removing you, Miss Thomas." 2 individuals in dark suits approached, displaying federal badges. "FBI. We have questions about certain financial transactions between Reed Pharmaceuticals and offshore accounts in your name." As the federal agents escorted a protesting Julian and Sophia away from the ceremony, the wedding guests began to disperse in confused, scandalized groups. Some lingered at a distance, unwilling to miss the dramatic conclusion to what had seemed to be a simple society wedding. Victor approached Eliza and the children slowly, as if in a trance. He knelt before the twins, studying their faces with wonder and devastation. "Hello," he said simply, his voice thick with emotion. Leo, always the more cautious twin, partly hid behind his mother's leg. But Luna met her father's gaze directly. "You look like your pictures too," she informed him matter-of-factly, "but Mom's are from when you were happier." Victor's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry. I didn't know about you. I would've." His voice trailed off as the enormity of what he had missed engulfed him. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation somewhere more private," Eliza suggested, glancing at the remaining onlookers. "Your parents are welcome to join us." Victor nodded numbly, then turned to find his mother and father already standing nearby, unable to take their eyes off their grandchildren. "The helicopter is waiting," Eliza added. "Unless you'd prefer to stay and explain to your guests why there won't be a wedding today." As they walked toward the helipad, Victor found himself beside Eliza, the twins slightly ahead with his fascinated parents. "Why now?" he asked quietly. "After 6 years, why choose this moment?" Eliza's expression remained carefully neutral. "Because the twins deserve to know their father. Because your parents deserve to know their grandchildren. And because Julian and Sophia were about to complete their takeover of your company, leaving you penniless and potentially implicated in their crimes." She paused. "The timing of the wedding date, the anniversary of when you threw me out, merely provided a certain poetic symmetry." In the helicopter, as they flew toward Eliza's home, Victor watched his children point excitedly at landmarks below. They were bright, articulate, and obviously well-raised. The life Eliza had built without him suddenly seemed to materialize in his mind. The birthdays he had missed, the first steps, first words, the nightly bedtime stories and morning breakfasts. 6 years of memories he would never recover. "Where are we going?" Victor asked quietly. "To my home," Eliza replied. "There are documents you need to see. Evidence of what Julian and Sophia have been doing to your company." And she hesitated. "The children want to show you." The helicopter touched down on the rooftop landing pad of a sleek building, bearing the Phoenix Pharmaceuticals logo. As they descended to a penthouse apartment, Victor realized with growing shock the extent of Eliza's success. This wasn't just a company, it was an empire, built from nothing in 6 short years. Inside the spacious, warmly decorated penthouse, the twins immediately ran to a shelf displaying their artwork and school achievements. "We want to show you our room," Luna announced, grabbing Victor's hand with the easy confidence of a child who had never known rejection. Leo followed more hesitantly, watching his father's reactions carefully. As Victor was led through the home Eliza had created, each detail revealed another facet of the life that had continued without him. Family photos of holidays and birthdays as evidence of the twins' distinct personalities. In their carefully decorated bedroom, bookshelves were filled with well-loved stories. In the twins' room, a space divided to reflect their different interests, Luna's half filled with astronomy decorations and science projects, Leo's with books and intricate building sets. Victor noticed a small box on a shelf labeled Dad. "Can I show him, Mom?" Luna asked as Eliza appeared in the doorway. At Eliza's nod, Luna retrieved the box and opened it to reveal newspaper clippings, photographs, and even the announcement of Victor and Eliza's wedding from years before. "Mom made this so we would know you," Luna explained, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "She said you were very smart, and that's why we're smart too." Victor looked up at Eliza in disbelief. Despite everything he had done or failed to do, she had ensured his children knew him, at least in some capacity. "I'll give you some time with them," Eliza said quietly. "When you're ready, we need to discuss Julian's activities. Your parents are in the living room." In the stylishly appointed living room, Victor's parents sat awkwardly on a sofa, still stunned by the day's revelations. Victor's father, Richard Reed, a formidable businessman in his own right, looked utterly lost as he accepted a cup of tea from Eliza. "How could we not have known?" he asked, his voice heavy with regret. "Our own grandchildren." "Julian was very thorough," Eliza replied without bitterness. "He intercepted communications, falsified documents, and ensured Victor received only the information that served his purposes." "But why?" Victor's mother asked. "What could he possibly gain?" Eliza opened a laptop on the coffee table. "Control of Reed Pharmaceuticals. He and Sophia have been systematically embezzling funds while simultaneously setting Victor up to take the fall for covering up dangerous side effects of your medications." She turned the screen to show them complex financial records. Once they were married, Sophia would have had access to Victor's personal accounts and holdings. They planned to complete the transfer of assets within months of the wedding. Richard Reed studied the documents with growing horror. These are board-level financial reports. How did you get these? I have sources within Reed Pharmaceuticals, Eliza acknowledged. People who remained loyal to the company's original mission, rather than to Julian's vision. Victor entered the room, visibly emotional from his time with the children. They're incredible, he said simply, looking at Eliza with new eyes. How did you do it? Raise them so well while building a company from nothing. I had help, Eliza replied. Dr. Torres, for one, and an elderly woman named Eleanor, who took me in when I was homeless and pregnant. Homeless? Victor's mother repeated, aghast. Yes, Eliza confirmed, her tone clinical rather than accusatory. When Victor ordered me removed from our home, my accounts were frozen, my credit cards canceled, and my reputation destroyed. I slept in my car for 2 weeks before Eleanor found me vomiting in a parking lot from morning sickness. The stark reality of what Eliza had endured hit Victor like a physical blow. I never knew, he whispered. Julian told me you'd moved in with your lover. There was no lover, Victor, Eliza said quietly. There was only me, pregnant with your children, trying to survive, while Julian calmly destroyed everything we had built together. Victor sank into a chair, head in his hands. The evidence seemed so conclusive. The texts, the watch, even witness accounts. All fabricated, Eliza confirmed. Julian hired someone to create fake text messages. The watch and hotel key were planted. The witnesses were paid. She opened another file on her laptop. This is the payment record from Julian's private account to the man who posed as my imaginary lover. And this, she continued, turning to another document, is the restraining order supposedly filed by you that prevented me from approaching you about my pregnancy. Victor stared at the document in horror. I never filed this. I would never. Julian forged your signature, Eliza explained, just as he did on numerous company documents, authorizing the release of medications despite concerning test results. As the full extent of Julian and Sophia's betrayal became clear, Victor appeared to physically age before their eyes. His parents looked equally devastated, particularly his mother, who kept glancing toward the hallway, where laughter could occasionally be heard from the twins' room. Why didn't you expose them sooner? Richard finally asked. With evidence this comprehensive, you could have cleared your name years ago. Eliza considered her answer carefully. At first, survival was my only concern. Then, protecting the twins became paramount. By the time Phoenix was established enough for me to consider confrontation, I had to weigh the impact on innocent Reed Pharmaceuticals employees and patients. She met Victor's gaze directly. Despite everything, I never wanted to destroy the company or harm those who depended on it. Victor looked at her with new understanding. So instead, you built a competing company with better products and ethical practices, gradually transferring patients to safer medications while gathering evidence against Julian? Yes, Eliza acknowledged. Phoenix wasn't built solely for revenge, Victor. It was built because I saw how Julian was corrupting your company's mission, the mission we once shared, of helping people. A soft knock at the door interrupted their conversation. Dr. Torres entered, carrying a tablet. The FBI has taken Julian and Sophia into custody, she reported, and the preliminary filing with the SEC has been completed. Reed Pharmaceuticals stock trading will likely be suspended, pending investigation. Victor paled. The company will collapse. Not necessarily, Eliza replied. I've prepared a proposal for consideration. She retrieved a folder from her desk and handed it to Victor. A merger between Phoenix and Reed. It would preserve jobs, maintain patient access to medications, and allow for an orderly transition while the legal issues are addressed. Victor opened the folder with trembling hands, scanning the detailed proposal with growing amazement. You've prepared for every contingency, he murmured. I've had 6 years to consider the possibilities, Eliza replied simply. As Victor and his parents reviewed the proposal, Eliza stepped into the hallway with Dr. Torres. Are you certain about this? Dr. Torres asked quietly. After everything he did? Eliza watched through the doorway as Victor studied the document that could save his family's legacy. This isn't about Victor, she replied. It's about the twins having a relationship with their father and grandparents. It's about preserving jobs and continuing to help patients. Dr. Torres smiled knowingly. And it has nothing to do with finally showing him exactly what he lost when he chose to believe Julian over you? For the first time that day, Eliza's composed expression cracked slightly, revealing a glimpse of the pain she still carried. Perhaps there's some satisfaction in that, she admitted. But revenge was never my primary motivation. No, Dr. Torres agreed, squeezing her friend's hand. That's why you succeeded where Julian failed. He was driven by greed and resentment. You were driven by something far more powerful, the determination to create something good from something terrible. The twins appeared in the hallway, their initial excitement giving way to uncertainty as the day's events began to overwhelm them. Mom, Leo asked quietly, is he really staying for dinner? Eliza knelt to her son's level. Your father and your grandparents would like to have dinner with us, yes. Is that okay with you? Leo considered this seriously. Does this mean we have to call him Dad now? No, sweetheart, Eliza assured him. You can call him whatever makes you comfortable. This is all very new, and everyone understands that. Luna, ever practical, had a different concern. Will they come to our birthday party next month? We're having a space theme, and Grandma Eleanor is making the cake. The simple question, reflecting a child's straightforward priorities, shifted the heavy atmosphere. Eliza smiled genuinely for the first time since the helicopter landing. That's something we can discuss over dinner, she replied. For now, why don't you both wash up while I check on our guests? As the children scampered off, Eliza returned to the living room, where Victor and his parents were engaged in intense discussion. They fell silent as she entered. The twins would like to know if you're staying for dinner, she announced. And Luna has already advanced to questions about birthday party attendance next month. Victor looked up, his eyes red-rimmed, but filled with determination. I'd like that, the dinner. And, if you'll allow it, the birthday party too. We understand if it's too soon, his mother added haltingly. We've missed so much already, but we don't want to overwhelm them. Eliza studied them, the family that had once been hers, now strangers, connected by blood to her precious children. Dinner is a good place to start, she decided. As for the future, that depends on many factors. The twins' comfort is my priority. As it should be, Richard agreed firmly. We failed them, and you, terribly. Whatever boundaries you set, we'll respect. Eleanor arrived shortly after, bringing the dessert she had promised the twins. Her introduction to the Reed family was awkward, but warmed quickly when Victor thanked her, his voice breaking, for taking in Eliza when no one else would. Someone had to show some common sense, Eleanor replied bluntly. Lucky for all of you. I'm too old to care about pharmaceutical politics and too stubborn to be intimidated by wealthy fools. The dinner that followed was surreal, the blending of two worlds that had existed in parallel for 6 years. The twins, adaptable as children often are, seemed to accept the sudden appearance of grandparents with remarkable ease. Victor, however, watched his children with an expression of wonder mixed with profound loss, acutely aware of every reference to events he had missed. As Eleanor and the elder Reeds helped the twins prepare for bed, the grandparents forming an unlikely alliance in their shared desire to connect with the children, Victor and Eliza found themselves alone in her study. I don't know how to thank you, Victor said finally. Not just for the merger proposal, but for, he gestured helplessly, for making sure they knew who I was, even when you had every reason to erase me from their lives. They deserve to know their heritage, Eliza replied simply. My issues with you didn't change that fact. Victor studied her face, the woman he had once loved so completely, now a stranger who had built an extraordinary life without him. And what happens now? Beyond the merger? Beyond the legal proceedings against Julian and Sophia? Now you get to know your children, Eliza answered slowly. On their terms than mine. You've missed 6 years, Victor. That can't be recovered overnight. And us? He asked hesitantly. Is there any possibility that? No, Eliza interrupted firmly. That part of her story ended the night you chose to believe Julian over me. I've built a life I'm proud of, Victor. The twins and I are happy. Victor nodded, accepting her answer with a resigned dignity that would have been impossible for the younger man who had cast her out so rashly. I understand. I need you to know how deeply I regret what happened. If I could go back. We can't go back, Eliza said more gently. We can only go forward. For the twins' sake, I hope we can build a civil relationship. But romantic reconciliation isn't possible. Too much has changed. As Victor absorbed this definitive statement, a soft knock came at the study door. Dr. Torres entered with a tablet. Sorry to interrupt, but you should see this. The news about Julian and Sophia's arrest has broken. Reed Pharmaceuticals' board is calling an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning. Victor grimaced. I should go. I need to prepare for the fallout. The merger proposal could stabilize things if presented promptly, Eliza suggested. Your parents have copies. Perhaps they could attend with you while I handle the twins' morning routine. The simple domestic reference, the morning routine she had managed alone for 6 years, hung between them, highlighting everything Victor had lost through his rash judgment and misplaced trust. Thank you, he said finally, for the proposal, for dinner, for everything. He hesitated. Would it be appropriate to say good night to the twins? Eliza nodded. They're probably still awake. Luna rarely falls asleep before extracting at least 3 bedtime stories. A ghost of a smile crossed Victor's face. She's persistent, like her mother. Yes, Eliza agreed, leading him toward the children's room. Though her negotiation tactics come entirely from your side of the family. The conference room at Reed Pharmaceuticals hummed with tension as board members assembled for the emergency meeting. News of Julian and Sophia's arrests had spread rapidly through financial circles, and the company's stock had been suspended from trading pending investigation. Victor sat at the head of the table, his father beside him, both men looking exhausted but resolute. The board members, many longtime family friends, appeared shell-shocked by the revelations about Julian's activities. The situation is grave, but not unsalvageable, Victor began, his voice steady despite his inner turmoil. With your permission, I'd like to present a proposed path forward. For the next hour, Victor outlined the merger proposal Eliza had prepared. The board listened with increasing interest as he explained how combining Phoenix's innovative research with Reed's established infrastructure could preserve jobs, maintain patient access to medications, and position the combined entity as an industry leader. This Eliza Winters, one board member said skeptically, she's willing to merge her successful company with ours during a crisis of this magnitude? What's her motivation? Victor and his father exchanged glances. There's something else you should know, Victor admitted. Eliza Winters is Eliza Reed, my former wife. The shocked murmurs around the table reflected the bombshell nature of this revelation. The woman Julian Thomas claimed was unfaithful, an older board member clarified. The one who disappeared 6 years ago? Yes, Victor confirmed. Julian fabricated evidence against her to conceal his own financial crimes. She was innocent of all accusations. And she's now our primary competitor? Another asked incredulously. She is, Victor acknowledged. She's also the mother of my 6-year-old twins, whom I met for the first time yesterday. The stunned silence that followed was finally broken by the company's longest-serving board member, Margaret Chin. That's not what I meant, Eliza clarified. I meant for you, personally. You were deceived by people you trusted implicitly. That isn't something one simply moves past. Victor considered her questions seriously. I've started therapy, he admitted. Something I should have done years ago, after my brother's death. Julian exploited my grief and insecurities masterfully. He met her gaze. I'm not the same man who threw you out, Eliza. I can't change what I did, but I can ensure I never make that kind of mistake again. Eliza nodded, accepting his answer without comment. The merger announcement made headlines across business publications. Fex and Reed Pharmaceuticals announce historic merger. Eliza Winters revealed as Victor Reed's ex-wife in stunning corporate and personal reconciliation. The personal aspect of the story, the wronged wife returning triumphantly with hidden children and a superior company, captured public imagination. Interview requests flooded in, which Eliza politely but firmly declined. This isn't a tabloid drama, she told her PR team. It's a business merger with personal elements that aren't for public consumption. As the weeks passed, Victor's relationship with the twins gradually deepened. Leo began to lower his guard, especially after discovering his father's extensive library and shared interest in geology. Luna simply adopted Victor as if he had always been present, matter-of-factly incorporating him into her expansive worldview. The twins' upcoming 7th birthday became a focal point. Victor, eager to make the occasion memorable, consulted repeatedly with Eliza about appropriate gifts and arrangements. Nothing extravagant, she cautioned. They don't need to be showered with expensive presents to make up for lost time. I know, Victor assured her, but I'd like to contribute something meaningful to the space theme Luna requested. The day before the birthday celebration, Victor appeared at Eliza's penthouse with Dr. Torres, who had become an unexpected ally in helping him navigate his new relationship with his children. We have a proposal, Dr. Torres announced. For the birthday party, Eliza raised an eyebrow. I thought everything was arranged. Eleanor's making the cake, the decorations are ready, and the planetarium visit is booked for tomorrow morning. This would be an addition, Victor explained, with your approval, of course. He outlined his idea. A professional observatory had agreed to a private evening viewing session following the planetarium visit. The twins and their friends would have access to powerful telescopes during an unusually clear night when several planets would be visible. That's actually perfect, Eliza acknowledged. Luna will be ecstatic. And for Leo, Victor continued more hesitantly, I've arranged for a geologist from the Natural History Museum to bring several rare specimens for him to examine, including, he added with a small smile, a fragment of the meteorite that created Barringer Crater. Eliza looked at him with new appreciation. You've been paying attention to their interests. Of course, Victor replied simply. They're extraordinary children. Getting to know them has been the greatest privilege of my life. The birthday celebration unfolded perfectly. The twins, surrounded by friends from school and both sides of their unusual family, blossomed under the attention. Eleanor and Victor's mother had formed an unexpected alliance, coordinating decorations and food with military precision. Richard Reed, initially awkward around children, had found his niche helping Leo organize his growing rock collection. At the observatory that evening, after the other children had been collected by their parents, the core family group remained. Luna moved from telescope to telescope with boundless enthusiasm, while Leo carefully logged his observations in a notebook Victor had given him. As the children were occupied with Dr. Torres and the elder Reeds, Victor found himself standing beside Eliza at the observatory railing, looking out over the city lights. Thank you, he said quietly, for allowing me to be part of today. Eliza nodded, her expression softening in the dim light. You did well. The observatory was the perfect gift. I meant what I said before, Victor continued carefully. Getting to know them, even with all the years I've missed, is the greatest gift I could have received. Eliza turned to study him, the man she had once loved completely, now a different person shaped by loss and revelation. You've changed, she observed. I had to, Victor replied simply. The man I was 6 years ago lost everything that mattered because he couldn't see what was right in front of him. Not everything, Eliza corrected, glancing toward the twins. They're still yours in the ways that matter most. Because of you, Victor acknowledged. Because despite everything, you made sure they knew who I was. A comfortable silence fell between them. Not the intimacy of their former relationship, but something new. A shared appreciation for the extraordinary children they had created and the complex path that had led them to this moment.
Mom, Dad.
Luna called excitedly, the parental designations now coming naturally to her. We found PNS rings. Come see. As they moved to join their children, Victor paused. Eliza, I know we can never go back to what we were, and I've accepted that. But I want you to know that I'm grateful for this second chance to be in their lives, even if only as a co-parent and business partner. Eliza considered his words carefully. Life rarely gives us what we expect, Victor. Sometimes it takes away what we thought we couldn't live without, only to replace it with something we never imagined possible. As the twins excitedly called for them again, she added, let's focus on giving them the stable, loving family they deserve, whatever form that takes. 1 year after the dramatic wedding interruption, the twins' 8th birthday arrived with considerably less drama, but far more joy. Phoenix Reed Pharmaceuticals had not only survived the merger, but thrived. Combining Eliza's innovative research approaches with Reed's established infrastructure, the company had become an industry leader in ethical practices, transparent testing, and affordable medication pricing. The birthday celebration was held at Victor's new home, a comfortable but not ostentatious house with a sprawling garden, perfect for the dinosaur-themed party Leo had requested. His interest had shifted from rocks to paleontology in recent months. Eliza arrived early to help with preparations, bringing Eleanor and Dr. Torres, who had become fixtures in the twins' expanded family circle. Victor's parents were already there, Richard carefully assembling a realistic volcano that would erupt safely during the party, while his wife arranged prehistoric-looking plants around the garden. Everything looks amazing, Eliza commented, surveying the transformed backyard. The children will love it. I hope so, Victor replied, emerging from the house with trays of fossil-shaped cookies. Leo was very specific about scientific accuracy. He gets that from both of us, Eliza observed with a smile. Their relationship had evolved over the past year into a comfortable co-parenting arrangement. The initial tension had gradually given way to mutual respect as they navigated both their corporate merger and their shared responsibility for the twins. The children had adapted to their new family structure with remarkable resilience. They now spent 3 nights a week at Victor's home, with the remaining time at Eliza's penthouse. Far from being confused by the arrangement, they seemed to thrive on having both parents actively involved in their lives. As guests began to arrive, school friends, colleagues from both companies, and the unconventional extended family they had assembled, Eliza found herself watching Victor interact with the children. His transformation over the past year had been remarkable. The ambitious, sometimes arrogant pharmaceutical heir had been replaced by a thoughtful, patient father who prioritized his children above all else. He's done well, Dr. Torres observed, joining Eliza at the edge of the garden. Better than I expected, if I'm being honest. Yes, Eliza agreed. The twins adore him. And you? Dr. Torres asked carefully. How are you feeling about everything? It can't be easy, watching him integrate so seamlessly into the life you built without him. Eliza considered the question. Actually, it's been easier than I anticipated. Victor isn't trying to take over or change what already works. He's simply adding himself to the equation in ways that benefit the children. And in ways that benefit you? Dr. Torres pressed gently. Having a co-parent after 6 years of doing everything alone must be some relief. It is, Eliza acknowledged. Though I sometimes feel guilty about that. After everything that happened, should I be allowing him to make my life easier? Dr. Torres smiled knowingly. Forgiveness isn't just about him, Eliza. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of the past. Before Eliza could respond, another guest arrived, David Torres, Dr. Torres' son, carrying an elaborately wrapped gift. Over the past year, David had become a frequent visitor at family gatherings. As a pediatric surgeon who had initially treated Leo for a minor sports injury, he had formed a natural bond with both children. "Sorry I'm late," he apologized, greeting Eliza with a warm smile. Emergency surgery ran long. "You're right on time," Eliza assured him. "The volcano eruption isn't scheduled for another 30 minutes. As David moved to greet the twins, who received him with obvious affection, Dr. Torres gave Eliza a meaningful look. "He canceled a conference in Boston to be here today," she mentioned casually. Said the twins' birthday was more important. Eliza felt a flush of warmth at this information. Her friendship with David had been developing gradually, but neither had taken steps to define it as anything more. "He's good with them," Eliza observed neutrally, though her expression softened as she watched David help Leo adjust his paleontologist costume. The party proceeded perfectly, with the volcano eruption serving as the dramatic highlight. Leo and Luna, surrounded by friends and their unusual extended family, beamed with happiness as they blew out the candles on their dinosaur cake. As the celebration began to wind down, Victor approached Eliza with 2 glasses of champagne. "A toast," he suggested, "to our extraordinary children." Eliza accepted the glass. "To Leo and Luna. May they always be this happy." They sipped in companionable silence, watching as the twins excitedly showed their friends the real fossil specimens Victor had obtained from the museum. "I've been meaning to tell you," Victor said after a moment. "The investigation into Julian and Sophia's activities is finally complete. Their sentencing is next month." Eliza nodded. The legal proceedings had been extensive, uncovering even more widespread fraud than initially suspected. "Have they offered any explanation for why they did it? Why they targeted me specifically?" "Julian finally admitted that he recognized you were close to discovering irregularities in the research data," Victor explained. "He knew your scientific thoroughness would eventually expose the corners he was cutting. Removing you was self-preservation." "And Sophia?" Victor's expression hardened slightly. "Apparently, she always resented our relationship. She saw Julian's scheme as an opportunity to get what she'd wanted since university, wealth and status as a Reed." Eliza absorbed this information thoughtfully. "It's strange to think how differently everything might have unfolded if you had simply listened to me that night." "I know," Victor acknowledged, regret evident in his voice. "Not a day passes that I don't think about that. If I could change any one moment in my life, it would be that one." And yet, Eliza mused, watching the joyful chaos of their children's birthday party. "Would we want to change it? I mean, Phoenix wouldn't exist. Your parents wouldn't have Eleanor terrifying them with her brutally honest opinions." She smiled slightly. "Dr. Torres and I wouldn't have revolutionized cancer treatment protocols." "A silver lining to my catastrophic mistake?" Victor suggested with a self-deprecating smile. "Perhaps," Eliza allowed, "though the cost was tremendous." Their conversation was interrupted by David, who approached with an apologetic expression. "Sorry to interrupt, but Leo is insisting that only a medical doctor can properly examine his new fossil collection for scientific accuracy. Apparently, my credentials as a surgeon qualify me for this honor." Victor laughed. "You'd better not keep him waiting. He takes his fossils very seriously." As David moved away, Victor glanced between him and Eliza with knowing eyes. "He's a good man," he observed neutrally. "Yes," Eliza agreed simply. "The twins are comfortable with him," Victor continued carefully. "They mentioned he takes them hiking on Saturdays sometimes." "He does," Eliza confirmed. "He's been a good friend." Victor studied her expression. "Just a friend?" Eliza met his gaze directly. "We're taking things very slowly. The children are my priority." "As they should be," Victor agreed. "But, Eliza, if he makes you happy, don't let the past, our past, stand in the way of that." The simple sincerity of his statement touched Eliza unexpectedly. This was another sign of how much Victor had changed, the ability to genuinely wish for her happiness, even with someone else. Later that evening, after the last guests had departed and the twins were asleep in their rooms at Victor's house, the adults gathered on the patio. Eleanor and the elder Reeds were engaged in lively debate about educational approaches, while Dr. Torres shared stories from her early research days. David sat beside Eliza, their hands occasionally brushing in a way that suggested growing comfort with small intimacies. Victor, noticing this, smiled to himself before turning his attention back to the conversation. As midnight approached, Eleanor announced it was time for her to depart, prompting a general movement to conclude the evening. The twins would stay with Victor until morning, following their established routine. "I'll walk you out," David offered, as Eliza gathered her things. At the front door, away from the others, he hesitated. "I've been meaning to ask you something." Eliza looked at him expectantly. "There's a medical conference in Vienna next month," he explained. 3 days. "I thought perhaps you might consider joining me. We could extend it to a week, see the city." The invitation hung between them. Not just an offer of travel, but a step toward defining their relationship more clearly. "I need to check with Victor about the twins," Eliza began cautiously. "Already did," David admitted with a sheepish smile. "He assured me he could adjust his schedule to have them that week." Dr. Torres volunteered to help too. Eliza raised an eyebrow. "You've been planning this?" "Hoping," David corrected gently. "I know how important the children are to you. I wouldn't suggest anything that complicated their lives." The care behind his consideration, not just for her, but for the entire complex family she had built, touched Eliza deeply. "Vienna sounds wonderful," she said finally, allowing herself to accept the possibility of personal happiness that had nothing to do with revenge or redemption. The following morning, Victor prepared breakfast as the twins energetically recounted their favorite parts of the party. Eliza arrived to collect them, accompanied by David, who had offered to drive them to their weekend science club. As the adults supervised breakfast cleanup, an unexpected moment of harmony settled over the kitchen. Victor and David discussing the twins' educational interests, Eliza organizing the week's schedule, all operating with a comfortable rhythm of people who had found a way to put the children's needs above all else. When the twins ran off to collect their science projects, Victor took the opportunity to speak privately with Eliza. "I wanted to thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" Eliza asked, genuinely puzzled. "For allowing me to be part of their lives," Victor explained. "For not letting bitterness consume you when you had every right to it." Eliza considered his words carefully. "Do you know what the real secret was? The one that ultimately ruined you?" Victor waited, curious. "It wasn't the twins," she continued. "It wasn't Phoenix Pharmaceuticals or exposing Julian's schemes. It was showing you that redemption was possible. But forgiveness had to be earned, every day. The man who threw me out that night would never have understood that. The man standing before me now does." Her words contained no malice, only a recognition of truth. Victor nodded slowly, accepting both the assessment and the implicit acknowledgement that he had indeed changed.
Mom, Dad.
"We're ready," Luna called from the hallway, where she and Leo waited with their backpacks and science projects. As they moved to join the children, Victor asked softly, "Are you happy, Eliza?" "Truly." She glanced toward David, who was helping Leo adjust his dinosaur diorama, then back to the twins, healthy, brilliant, and surrounded by people who loved them. Finally, she considered herself, the woman who had risen from homelessness to build a pharmaceutical empire, who had raised extraordinary children alone, and who had now found a peaceful resolution to what had once seemed an unforgivable betrayal. "Yes," she answered honestly. "Not in the way I once imagined, but perhaps in a better way than I could have planned." Outside, as they prepared to separate, the twins going with Eliza and David to science club, Victor heading to a company meeting, Leo suddenly paused. "Wait," he said seriously. "We forgot something important." The adults exchanged concerned glances. "What is it, sweetheart?" Eliza asked. "Our family photo," Leo explained, pointing to the camera still sitting on the entry table from yesterday's party. "We're supposed to take one after every birthday. It's our tradition." The simple request to document their unconventional family momentarily silenced the adults. It was Luna who solved the practical problem. "We need the timer," she declared, already setting up the camera. "Everyone by the garden wall. Hurry." They assembled as directed. Victor and Eliza with the twins between them, David and the others arranged around them. As the timer counted down, Leo and Luna beamed with the simple joy of children, surrounded by adults who had found a way to put love above resentment, forgiveness above revenge. The camera flashed, capturing a moment that would have seemed impossible 2 years earlier. Not a perfect family by conventional standards, but one that had been forged through extraordinary circumstances into something resilient and real. Later that evening, as Eliza reviewed work documents while the twins completed homework at her dining table, her phone chimed with a message from Victor. He had sent the family photo, accompanied by a simple text. "Not what either of us imagined, but perhaps better than what we planned. Thank you for showing me that the most powerful revenge wasn't destruction, but creation." Eliza studied the image, her children's joyful faces surrounded by the unusual extended family they had assembled. Victor was right. The revenge she had ultimately taken wasn't destroying him or his company. It was creating something so extraordinary from the ashes of betrayal that it transformed everyone it touched, including, most surprisingly, herself. What would you have done in Eliza's position? Would you have chosen revenge, reconciliation, or something entirely different? The choices we make in our darkest moments often reveal our true character more than our actions in times of happiness. If you enjoyed this story of resilience, redemption, and the complex nature of forgiveness, please consider subscribing to our channel. In the comments below, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what aspect of Eliza's journey resonated most with you. Until next time, thank you for listening.